Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, hello and good morning. It's your smiling face from Mr. Grizzly, who is not fully awake yet, but that's okay. Mr. Beaver is working on some tech issues, and we've got a guest as well who's joining us, but they too are also having some tech issues. So let me see. I'm going to try bring Mr. Beaver in, and let's see if we've got some audio there. Can you hear me, sir? And unfortunately, I can't hear you. Yeah, try a hard reboot, and we'll see. It's one of those days. He is at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge, so sometimes tech just goes sideways on us, unfortunately. So to begin with, good morning. Welcome to the show. I don't know if it'll be me solo the whole time or not. We do have a guest waiting in the green room. I'm going to bring them in a minute, but I wanted to. Mr. Beaver wanted to do the introduction because he was the gentleman who was invited the guest today, and unfortunately, if he's not here, I don't know this person, and I don't know a whole lot about what they do. So this might be a little awkward, but I'll do the best I can to muddle on through. But before we get to that, let's thank our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, the Peppermaster, and CanadianTarot.com. They've been with us since the very beginning. As a matter of fact, they were with us before we even had a show. They signed on to sponsor, literally on the word of Mr. Beaver. So we can't thank them enough. And we do have a new sponsor who will be joining us. That's a little ways off, but we do have a new sponsor that will be joining us. And I don't know if our guest can, if there's audio working for our guest or not yet, but I'll bring her in just a moment or two. Once I address one thing, I need to address this right away because this is something I thought was important to address, as it is a political show, and well, you know, our subject is always politics, and this particular item from Mr. Beaver is there. Let's see, I'll bring him in just a second. If my computer's not working. There we go. Okay, Mr. Beaver, let's see. Mr. Beaver, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm using it through my phone.
And you know what? We'll set you up so you can use it through your phone with your microphone in the future because your video is better on your phone.
Okay.
Video is much better and the lighting's much better too. So yeah, I'll get you squared away so you can use a mic on your phone, and we'll make this work great in the future. So you have to carry less gear.
Okay, that'd be great because this computer is slow as hell today.
Oh yeah, I noticed you were.
And there's nothing open but Restream.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, it might be time for a new machine, I think.
I think so. And I'm plugged into the Ethernet.
Yeah, no, I know that because trying to do Wi-Fi from the remote lodge, it just doesn't work.
I don't know why. All right. Good morning and hello, kids. Welcome to season 3 and episode number 268. I'm going to say of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Is our guest in the green room? Are the audio?
Yes.
issues
And
resolved?
I assume there's audio because she switched to her phone. So if you want to introduce her, and then I'll bring her in, and hopefully, fingers crossed, technology works. But just before we do that, I did want to address this one thing because we are a political show. Because today's not going to be very political for the most part. But I do want to address this one item right here. From a Liberal member of Parliament, Adam Van Couverden, who tweeted out something last night, and I went, "Yep, no surprise there whatsoever, sir. All hat, no cattle, Pierre Poilievre. All show, no go. Pierre Poilievre thinks he can bully Parliament by applying 130 individual votes against our fall economic statement. We are here in the House of Commons voting all night. His behavior is reckless, wasteful, unprofessional, and stupid. The kicker, he didn't even show up to vote." Apparently, while Pierre's Conservatives cover his butt all night in the House of Commons after his childish tantrum, he's at a fancy fundraiser in Montreal, a real man of the people. I've never met someone less qualified to lead Canada. What an absolute fraud. Now, those are some serious words from a member of Parliament. And here's the thing. I think he is just so fed up with the crap that Poilievre has been getting away with for so long that he's like, nope, gloves are off. That's it. I'm not putting up with this anymore. And I support Adam Van Couverden in that. He's the member of Parliament for Milton, which is just outside Toronto for those of you who do not know. And here's the thing. Pierre Poilievre, I'm going to hold people to task over this and make them stay over Christmas and work long hours. And he didn't even show up. He's such a liar. He's such a bullshitter. And he's been getting away with it for so long, but he's not getting away with it anymore. His show is over. His days as leader of the official opposition are numbered. He went to a $1,700 a plate fundraiser in Montreal. What a scumbag. Absolute scumbag. And that's all I have to say about that for right now, because I don't want to go on a expletive-laden rant. But I appreciate what Mr. Van Couverden did. An Olympian, a competitor, a member of Parliament, somebody who dearly loves this country and will do everything to protect it. The Liberal Party has had it. And members of Parliament in that party are like, okay, that's it, no more. He's been getting away with this far too long. That's it. It's over. It's done. And he's pursuing it. So that's where we stand this morning, my friends. That's where we stand. So, Mr. Beaver, please, sir.
All right. Our guest today is the artistic director of Mellows Choir and Period Instruments, a registered charitable arts organization in Kingston. She's been immersed in early music as a singer, choral conductor, and voice teacher for over 30 years. So this person knows music inside and out. She's a absolutely wonderful person, a delight to sing with and for. She has helped me immensely with my voice because there are sounds that come out of me now that were simply not possible 2-3 years ago. And she has all the vocabulary and she can tell you what's actually going on in your body as things are happening, right? She really is amazing. Yes, she really true. And she sings very well as conducts, as well as plays piano and harpsichord, and who knows what other instruments. But kids, cubs, please put your paws up and give a round of applause to Holly Gwynn Timothy. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. You're dealing with a Luddite, and I apologize for earlier obstacles.
It's quite okay, because you know what? Here's the thing. Your camera phone looks better too.
Good. I like looking good on camera because
the lighting is better. The image quality is better for both of you on the phone today. Well, you got to remember, phone cameras have come a long way in just a few short years. And some of the new phone cameras, they're shooting feature films on. That's how good they are.
Yeah, indeed. Holly, welcome to the Beaver Lodge. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I don't know how much time we do have, Mr. Grizzly.
We've got about 25 minutes roughly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to be in the office. I have another big meeting this morning. It's normally there's no meetings on Fridays, but however, because we are late December, mid-December. Everybody's wrapping up for the year. So yeah, it's been a busy week for me.
Okay. Okay.
You know what? You know what we could do, and this is up to you. It's up to you. I can log on to my phone, and like I can leave here in 20 minutes. Log on to my phone, keep the show going. You guys can keep your banter going, and I'll jump in and out as I have time from the office. Does that sound good?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, good.
All right.
Because it's Friday and we want to give the kids a good long show, right?
Yes. All right. Holly, the choir recently had its Christmas Advent and Yalda concert, and I wanted to know what it is about these concerts that are just so special in your mind.
Well, I mean, it starts with this obscure arena of what's called early music, which means music that goes way back, hundreds and hundreds of years. So through the Western lens, we have records of music, written music, and texts that go back to 4th to 6th century. And then we start to get notated music by about the 9th century. And that's a very special thing, the notation of music, guitar tabs, whatever it is you do to write down a song so that others can play it. So that's kind of part of the Western tradition. And that's my background, is Western classical music. But the further you go back, the closer you get to what may feel like Eastern roots of the Western traditions. And you get more earthy sounds, more roots-like sounds, chant. People often say, "Ooh, that sounds really Celtic," or "That sounds really Eastern." Often you'll get early music groups, or maybe not often, but from time to time, you'll get Western early music groups that find ways to synthesize and create programs and historical with Eastern groups. And we've been lucky enough in Kingston, with the presence of Queens and a really active community of refugee sponsorship, to have amazing musicians right in our own small city, from the Middle East, from Iran, from Syria. And over the years of being here, I've been sort of the go-to person that people refer. And that's because of Melos's interest in Eastern musics. So we do a mixture. Not every concert is blended. We also do, Western music right through, say, Bach or Handel, but from the Middle Ages through the Baroque. But we love these collaborative programs with people from away, comers, and who bring a completely different perspective. So what our show was Friday night, and it was absolutely incredible. We were in St. George's Cathedral. They opened their doors wide. We packed the house, and it was people from all over. It was very moving. And at a time of, in the world when there's so much tension, we were able to perform in Hebrew, Farsi, Latin, French, English. We performed, things from a variety of traditions that showed how we experience this time of year, or at least historically, these darkening days, the kind of pulling in, the reflective, even slightly that we feel at this time. Hope that whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Yalda, that these festivals of light bring, what we were kind of moving towards in the concert. So the music progressed from that sort of reflective or penitential music into something more jubilant, looking towards December 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's why it was so amazing. Just to have those traditions side by side and in a church setting is extraordinary.
It is, and the sound is just amazing. Now, when we have the pleasure of having the Nava band with us, it creates some really interesting opportunities for some arrangements where we could take some traditional Western songs and add some Eastern instrumentation, and vice versa. What is it about doing that kind of that type of collaboration that really stimulates you?
I think it's the mutual learning. We about each other. Tradition tune. how to announce things. And it's, I mean, I'm making that sound so educational. Maybe that's a bit dry. Really is very, it's indulgent. I love the sound, and it's so we get to play in someone else's sandbox. I guess really that's, in the immediate sensual sense, the ability to experience somebody else's music that somehow speaks to you at a very gut level. And I think we do that for each other. The communities do that for each other. We recognize beauty, even if it's a very initial beauty, something we've never heard. It's just objectively stunning, and then it's a privilege to be able to enter into that world. And for example, Nava Band will teach us or have some, okay, we feel way or like players and singers from that. And also within Melos, we have Fahad Abu Zainadine, who is an oud player. We've got percussion. We have people who bring their own backgrounds in music. So it's just that our Western, and Nava Band is from Iran. We've already got a mixture in our group, and then we find, ways with Nava Band to interpret.
Wonderful. And we have a little bit of an example of that. Because it wasn't just a concert night. There was another big event for Melos on that night.
Yes. Our first East-West collaboration, which is called Voces Feminarum. It's Women in Music, West and East, from the 16th century. We launched that album on Friday night, right after the concert. So we had a celebration immediately following. And it's a stunning album. And I don't know, are you going to play something for us, or is there something else you want to say about that, Douglas?
I think it would be a good opportunity for maybe a little Bahar El Denishin.
I don't know what that means, but sure, I'll play along.
Nope, Mr. Beaver.
That's what you told me to play.
No, track 8. That's the promo for the album.
Okay. Is that, well, I was just going by the title, dude. You wanted, what was it?
I sent you the list by email.
Yeah. That list is completely useless. Because all it does is give me a link to Spotify. Nothing else.
That's the one. Yeah. Link to Spotify.
No. The link to Spotify was to open Spotify. That's it.
Lord. All right.
Derm okay. Is what you wanted?
No, Bahar El Denishin. Just go to.
Okay, I got it. I got it. You just hold your horses, okay?
Okay.
All right, just give me a sec here. Technology's fun. It doesn't always work, though, as evidenced by the start of this morning's show. All right, so I will have to show you in the screen this, because this is how it works. Here we go. Let's try this. Kaboom, kaboom. And if I hit the play button.
There you go.
لاله تنها ببین بر چهره داغ حسرتم ای روی تو آینه ام عشقت غم دیرینه ام بازا چو گل در این بهار سر را بنه بر سینه ام تا بهار دلنشین آمده سوی چمن
There you go. I don't know how the audio was for the kits. I hope it was okay because I'm having a little connection issues myself at this end again.
Should have been okay. Sounded okay on the YouTube here. So.
It's doing some interesting warps at my end, but
Yeah, same here.
most of all, it was clear.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. Holly, what?
Yeah, it's your phone because it sounded good on YouTube.
Good.
Okay.
I'm monitoring the YouTube channel.
Perfect. When you have put this type of I know that as someone who had a chance to sing that, you feel something different because it's not music to which I'm used to. Right? It's a whole different language that, those words I had to learn for that song, rhythms, sounds, but it takes you to a certain place. I remember like when I was singing that song, I was very happy to be singing it, and I wanted to make sure that I had that extra care that I got the pronunciation right, and there were a lot of people in the audience who, because like I said, we get a mixed audience that connect with that music because that's their music, and they're watching people who are not them appreciating the music and putting the effort to do it well. What is it about that type of that, when you do the concert and you get that type of energy loop that makes it that's good musically and for the choir?
To me, I think it can speak to, which is the history that's written in the program on the Wikipedia. History website songs is incredible. This was written by the Persian classical conductor, founder of the first conservatory in Iran. And as we all know, the leadership in Iran changed in 1979, and the culture took went under very, very strict Islamic religious rule. So many of the things that were enjoyed in the arts were no longer accessible. So things like a choir of men and women singing together, let alone in a Christian church, these kind of things that we take for granted as, oh yeah, that's cool, we can do. You can't do it in Iran. So I think for our Iranian friends, profoundly, it's what they've been thirsting for, is the chance to do things in a sort of a contemporary setting that has the freedoms of expression. I think, but you also add to it, he was a pillar of extremely fine Persian classical culture. And his daughter went to the conservatory that he founded, and she was the first woman conductor in Iran. And his song, this song was so beloved. It's a beautiful love song. And that's the other thing, is the art of sort of elevated art of classical poetry in Iran. I mean, it's thought that Persian poetry influenced, from Iran all the way into Southern Europe, the troubadours and there's evidence, the poetry that came into Europe in the Middle Age, people that they influenced the structures that came from the Middle East, and very elevated structures. So that's kind of a backdrop. Moving really for love, and then music. The words, as no, it's not a man singing a woman or a woman singing a man. The lover is a neutral concept. So that, and that goes back thousands, like a long, long time. And we get all hung up on, is it a he or shit or she or it or whatever, but it's like, why don't we just have this kind of neutral pronoun, and then it's accessible to anybody. But of course we're doing with different behind it. But to me, these things are moving. In the concrete sense, this is built by the musicianship of our own musicians, our singers, and then the Iranians in our midst who know how to sing this music, and they're teaching us. And we don't do it, but I mean, we Canadians who we don't do it perfectly. But it's hard from people. Just incredible to hear Canadians trying to sing in Farsi, and we may not do it perfectly, but there again, I think that's part of the feeling when you're singing, is you're being carried by people who know and feel the music, but then you're also, as you say, Douglas, doing your best to do it really well. And then you just understand drop and the import culturally and how new this is. Here in the West, women were covering church not that long ago, and many, many things. I always remind myself this women's movement thing is very new. And women conductors, how many women conductors are there in the world this day, even in the West? Conductors. So these are interesting things that also make this more moving. It's just the appreciation of the liberties we have.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when let's think about this, when you say the women's movement is pretty new here, and I'm like, well, yeah, in North America, it is quite new. It's when did women were recognized as people? What,
1920
100 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, consider that, and you look at the progress that had been made in Iran in the 50s. They were much more culturally advanced than we are. Well, I mean, culturally they're way advanced compared to us, but there's been a regression since the late 70s with the Ayatollah, and of course what they did installing the Shah, and I don't want to get into the geopolitical aspect of it, but really the country's been spun backwards, and they've tried to undo centuries worth of forward movement. And when you talk about it like that, it's like, yeah, this movement, this equality, it's new. It's only like really 100 years old in North America, whereas in Iran it was the Persian culture was completely different. Unfortunately, when you let religious leaders take over and it becomes a religious state, we see what happens. So we need to be ever vigilant about that not happening here in Canada. And on that note, I'm going to jump off here. I'm going to join on my phone, and I'll meet you guys back in about 10 or 15 minutes once I get to the office. So I will see you soon.
All right. Absolutely. Now, Holly,
Thank you.
Obviously, to be doing this type of work, because you've been at this many years and you've studied this, there has to be a deep passion for music. Where does that come from?
They say musicality or musical genes exist. I have a lot of people, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and people who did a lot of music, loved a lot of music. And then also, face it, I've got this kind of middle class upbringing where I was encouraged to take piano lessons and join choirs, and I took classical guitar lessons and, played the recorder. So, and I lived in an age when there was still good music in the schools. And to be honest, at my high school in Toronto, that's probably the reason I'm a musician. I'll put a plug in for Mr. David Lowe, my high school music teacher. He was just amazing and so inspiring. So I've been lucky to have had a lot of exposure to good music and to have acquired skills of making music, writing music, notating, reading, and being exposed to a lot of different musics, living in Toronto and going to concerts. So you name it, I've been very privileged.
Now, I come to music from a different angle completely, because I studied in dance. So when I came to you, I couldn't sight read. I don't play an instrument. I have a decent sense of rhythm because of dance. And still you find basically you have taught me that anybody can sing, pretty much. How do you get people, for example, like me? Now I'm at the point now where I'm actually, when I'm sight reading on the page, I'm not only looking just for the words, I am looking at the notes and, okay, this one is longer and this one's shorter and this one is this much higher, and I have an idea of what I'm doing. Now the notes actually are starting to mean something to me. I can't look at a piece of paper and say, okay, that note, and then sing it. But if I hear it and then I see it, then I know where it relates to all the other ones. How do you take people like me who are not familiar with music in that sense and bring us to a level? Because this is not easy music to sing. Very
Well,
challenging.
yeah, it's a good question. And just to be blunt, not everybody in Melos, we have a range of abilities in Melos, and it's always this debate when I audition somebody who doesn't sight read and whose voice is still a little unstable. That display excellence of a really aspire for a little while. But I would say when I audition people, I'm not auditioning for position. What did they have? How many voice lessons? How many sight reading lessons? But rather potential. Where will this person go? How's their ear? How elastic is the voice? If it's not elastic, what can I do? If it's constricted, how can I help this? And I'm very, very, very lucky to have had exposure, partly through my own vocal constriction and a near injury when I was about 19, because I was coaching sports and yelling a lot. So I was directed to read the books of a man named Cornelius Reed. And from there in Toronto, I found probably the world's greatest exponent of Cornelius Reed, and that is Carol Ford. And she was my teacher for decades. She's an amazing vocal teacher. Studied with Cornelius Reed proponents, become, I think, quite adept at working with the autonomic aspect of vocal reflex. And what that means is that rather than teaching mechanistic ways to control their voice, you work with the inherent reflexes, some of which have been impeded through bad speech. Or I've worked through the Cancer Center, for example, in Eastern Ontario. I've done a series of workshops with them, and when people's throats have been disrupted by surgery, chemotherapy, all kinds of stuff, there are ways to bring the voices back that work on developing the most efficient reflexes in the laryngeal tract, area, and then the breathe naturally more efficient. So I could go on and on about that. That's a whole other interview. But the bottom line is that I embed in my choral culture functional exercises for the group. So I can be pretty certain that if someone comes in with a functionally weak voice or a tendency of the voice to kind of go off the rails, if they come to practices regularly and are doing the exercises right, that's going to get on track more quickly than in the absence of functional exercises. I mean, any choir is going to give a voice exercise, but some people find that it actually tightens the throat more because the throat's already constrictive and it's weak, and then they go to sing something really difficult and it gets even tighter. Mm-hmm. So this is the challenge. So that would be one thing, functional exercise as the precursor to every rehearsal. And then of reading, I mean, you've pretty much said it yourself. You're bright, you're aspirational. So you look at these notes and you say, wow, I'm sort of figuring that out. There is a kind of a logic to notation. Sometimes a few little pointers about, whole notes, half notes, 16th notes, and some rhythm. I don't do a lot of theory. I mean, I used to teach sight reading and musicianship for years. I did that. And I taught classes to adults as well, night classes in sight reading and musicianship. And it was really fun, but I don't spend time on that in rehearsals because I kind of know that combination of good ears and just watching the music go by, you're going to pick it up. And that's been borne out with all the singers I've had who've come in without formal training. Additionally, what I do is I provide listening aids and rehearsal aids, and many choir directors do this, where they'll record the tenor part and say, hey, here's the tenor part, and at measure 15 we do this, and then you sing it. And that way my singers who don't read music can listen and watch the notes go by. And that's another great way to learn how to read, is kind of passive listening with a score. And when I was in studying music in university, that's what you do. You put on a Beethoven symphony, you get a big score, and you're kind of listening and watching that massive edifice of notes blow by, and eventually, you get better at reading. In my case, it was like thicker textures. I wasn't brilliant at it, I will say. Some people are brilliant readers. They look at the page and they just hear it in their head, and it's amazing. But that's
Yeah. Our choir was a bit interesting in that when COVID hit, we kept rehearsing. We worked through Zoom at first, and then when we were able to have the rapid tests, we had a very stringent program, and sang with masks on, which is possible, by the way, quite possible. And then we would have our concerts, and we would record them on video because we didn't have audiences, because droplets, particularly when you're singing the type of music we're singing. And that's how the kids who watched the show got familiar with Melos, through us promoting the videos. But we didn't used to do that. Is there anything about the videos you have found that that increased the reach of the choir?
Yeah, I mean, I think they haven't been a moneymaker, to be honest. Charging people to go online and watch, download, get the YouTube link for $15 and you can watch it for 10 days. We've definitely had some sales, and we really are glad for that. But it hasn't really covered all our audio and video costs. But I think from the emotional standpoint and the reach standpoint, it's been huge, because again, our friends who have family away, far away, can send these YouTube links out and say, look what we're doing. And we don't try to control those sales. We want people to put it out there. And then even myself, I've got a lot of relatives in the States. Off that YouTube goes, and they can watch it. And that is the beauty. I mean, it's like your podcast. It's free. It's accessible. People are used to this audio visual approach online. So to me, the economy is tricky, because you want good quality sound and good videography. But then how do you charge people a lot of money to watch a YouTube? It's a bit ridiculous. I mean, most young people want this stuff for free. And we get into proprietary issues. We have professional musicians, we have copyright things to worry about. We contract through the musicians union. We can only air our YouTubes for 10 days as a result of those proprietary restrictions. But again, those are there for good reason, and we try to really respectfully, we can keep our videos for archival purposes, but we're really, really careful to say, okay, that's it, 10 days, and down it comes. So as much as I wish our YouTubes were up all the time, it's a balance, and we're really happy with the relationships we have as a result of this, striking the balance right.
So what's it like then? Because with COVID, clearly there are less opportunities for revenue generation, because usually it's ticket sales. And that's why, we have albums as well, which are for sale, by the way, kids. But what was the challenges of making sure that the choir remained funded? And in normal times, let's say, what are the challenges? Like, why is it important for Canadians to support artistic endeavors like this?
Well, you're going to speak to the fiscal conservative in me. I hate to say, I just, and not to say that I'm not grateful for the grants we got. We received a couple of very generous small business grants during the pandemic, because we are incorporated and we do run in a business-like way. We see corporate sponsorships, we sell ads, we do a lot of soliciting of personal donations, and we write grants. So we get your tax money through granting agencies like the Kingston Arts Council and so forth. So we had some grants, a couple of grants in our back pocket, which had to be put on hold and were carried through to the point that we were allowed to perform. So that was helpful, that we were allowed to defer the spending of those monies.
Okay.
Like we had our Voces Feminarum program was supposed to be in May of 2020. And of course, May of 2020, we were all hovering in our homes, unvaccinated, what was going on. So we were able to defer grants, number one. Two, these small business grants, which were, generous, it's about 10K twice. So a total of $20,000. And just, I'm being crass here perhaps, but to run a concert that fully pays people, through the musicians union and rents a space and, this and that, it's anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 per concert. So if that gives you an idea, we received funding through small business grants that amounted to the cost of one concert. And we do, we pay for good quality COVID tests. And I will say we took the masks off pretty much right away. We were teamed with an advisor from public health, and we bought masks. This was our chair at the time, Paul Mallow, fostered a relationship with public health, and we ordered large numbers of boxes of COVID tests, and we were using those so that we could get those masks off as quickly as possible. And we got permission to do that. So we didn't sing in masks for long. It's hard on the voice. It's not great for you. So we were trying to, but keep ourselves, we performed virtually. We tested beforehand, we did all those things, but that's costly. And then again, selling online tickets was nowhere near as lucrative as prior to the pandemic, selling in-person tickets and having a big crowd. Right. So lots of expenses, but from the standpoint of, why should people support the arts through something like the pandemic is exactly because if there's an economic hit, the government gets hit too, the tax revenues are slashed. This has not been an easy time for anybody. And we should not be just waiting for the grants to come. We need to invigorate the private sector and get people to understand that if the private sector gives to the arts, it enriches the culture, it makes the community happier, it reflects well on them. So a mixture of, let's see what the government can do to help us, but really let's get people to be engaged in the arts. And I don't just mean that, we should engage passive people off the couch. We need to do something that's appealing and that makes them want to get off the couch and come to a concert. So that's my responsibility, as somebody who leads an organization that gets tax benefits, frankly. I get benefits that come out of your pocket. So I owe it to you to be meaningful to my community. It's not just, I'm an artist and I want to express myself and, people owe this to me. It's a very interesting culture economically. It's rich because we have the capacity to enlist the private sector and be relevant to the community.
Now, when you decide to take on the challenge of an album, because a concert is one thing, but an album recording is a whole other thing. What gets added to that?
A lot of costs. And that's with my dear friends in the industry charging us the lowest rates they can charge because they love what Melos does. So, we've got an amazing graphic designer, Richard Talbot. We had top-notch recording engineers, Joe Mancuso and Kirk Starkey. We've had input from Aminpour Bargi, who's an internationally known Iranian filmmaker. We've been enriched by people already active in the arts who understand that registered charitable groups aren't rolling in dough, and they're willing to be flexible with their rates. So that was huge, to get, and likewise my singers and players, we pay them, some of them that we pay a core of our singers, but always willing to go that extra mile for the sake of the project, which is wonderful. So, but the costs add up. You've got equipment, you got to rent space, you've got to pay people for time, and it takes a lot of time. So we still have a bit of a bill to pay on that, to be honest. There's a little bit of a sense of the hourglass, having been turned upside down. And if I don't raise another $5,000 or $6,000 in the next few months or sell a lot of CDs, it's going to be an expensive little price tag that once again, it's probably going to come out of personal donations and people who are keen to help. So, and that's good. That's okay.
What's the difference between singing for a concert and singing for the recording? Because the process is completely different.
Yeah. Well,
I guess conducting.
Yeah, we get to do
because the
things.
singing is the same.
Yeah. So like from the directing perspective you want, or just
Yes,
overall?
from the directing perspective.
Yeah, it's I guess for me, I'm always about just, okay, opportunity. Oh my gosh, Kirk and Joe are here. They're going to record us. This is incredible. They're here for 2.5 days. Let's pack that roster in, which probably drove them a little bit nuts, because we recorded about 23 tracks in 2.5 days, which was too many, or maybe a little more than that. They're not all on the album. So let me figure this out. 20. Yeah, we have about 24 really decent, products of tracks from that recording session. So it's very intensive. If you do fewer, you can do more takes of each one and get them perfect, and it takes less editing. If you pack that recording schedule with a lot of takes, okay, we want to do this song and this song and that song, then you're not going to have as much time to repeat it and perfect it. And then in the editing process, which, I nominally assisted in, especially towards the end, you're going, okay, oh boy, we better use the front end of take 1 and the back end of take 2, and we're going to try to blend those two together. We were trying to avoid doing too much of that, because again, it's costly. Your producer, your editor would have to spend a lot of time in studio doctoring things up. So we try not to do too much of that. So I'm not sure if my colleagues would probably say Holly got a bit greedy and recorded more than she should have. And when you're dealing with, like, everybody's a world-class musician, you can kind of get away with that more, because the takes are going to be more perfected. But where we have this really interesting mixture of amateurs and professionals, there's a lot of patience required across the board, and a ton of concentration, and a little more risk of error. And I will say, I was so proud of my choir and my amateurs, because they focused professionally. It's exhausting. There was a heat wave the weekend we did it, and we were in an unair-conditioned church, and it was like, I'm American, so sorry, like 95 degrees Fahrenheit and 110% humidity. It was crazy hot and humid.
Yeah.
But they did really, really well. We were all sweating buckets. And yeah, because you can't turn fans on. It makes too much noise. So yeah, it was quite a really galvanizing experience. And I think it raised the level of it raised the depth of our collaboration across the cultures, and it raised the level of our execution, because we were really focused and had to do things over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're putting together a concert, or you're putting together a collection for an album, how do you come up with a theme, and how is it that you choose the pieces?
Well, this album was mostly drawn from this narrative called Voces Feminarum. And the Voces Feminarum narrative was actually, it was inspired by the years and years I spent, with people who specialize in medieval music, and we did a lot of music from the medieval convents. There's so much gorgeous chant that's associated with these women's residences, and some that we know was penned by women, like the music of Hildegard von Bingen. So I've been, really a lover of that repertoire for a long time. And then you start to see in Europe this amazing phenomenon of women writing polyphony, which, and by polyphony, I mean part writing, like, string quartets and choral music that's orchestrated. How did they get that skill, and when? And, it was before women were universally educated in sort of public universities. This was going on. So and it mostly came out of the aristocratic sphere, but I've always had an interest in that historic narrative, this thing of, you go from the Cistercian rules for women. They should not learn polyphony, nor should they write it, and they probably shouldn't even sing it. And, where they were very limited as to what they were allowed to do musically and in the arts. And then over the centuries, we see this shift. And by the like, say, for example, Baroque Italy, we have tracks of a number of women composers from the Italian Baroque, gorgeous music. And they're full on writing this, like, complicated counterpoint, and what we would call orchestrated music, where something is written specifically for a harpsichord or a gamba or a violin or whatever. So and then of course for singers. So we have a good sampling of that on the album. But that program, which was a concert, as I mentioned, it was supposed to be done in 2020, then the pandemic chopped that. We finally performed it in June of 2022. And in the course of that time, some of the narrative shifted, and we also had these amazing readings, and we had received funding from the Sisters of Providence, St. Vincent. It's an active, Kingston's longest serving charitable group here in Kingston. They're an amazing group of women. And they liked this narrative and were going to partake in the readings and sort of be part of it prior to the pandemic. And then sadly, the pandemic kind of dashed that because they live in a residential setting. Many of them are older, so they've been unable to partake in our programs. So we sort of, things morphed a little bit in that. And then meanwhile, Melos has to move on and perform other things. So our recording was about maybe 70% this women's narrative. And then I folded in things from our recent concert, like Regali Musicali, which means musical gifts. And that was courtly music from West and East. So I folded that into the recording as well, because it was fresh on our chops and we sounded good, and thought, let's surf the wave. This was this past June, and just do what is already feeling good with our current choir and players.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. If there's people in our audience that is not familiar with early music, what would you say to them to get them to give the album a chance?
I'd say put the album on and get a nice cup of tea and sit on a couch and just close your eyes and let your imagination and your nervous system guide you as to how to, what to think and feel, because it's some of it's very soothing and moving. Some of it's melancholy. It might actually kind of move you to tears. Like for me, at least, when I read the words, beautiful stuff. And then it's also this kind of, I'm on like the Silk Road or something. I'm going somewhere I've never been. I'm headed. There's a me, and I'm traveling, through history. I mean, camel's the wrong word, but that it's otherworldly and other timely, and you'll feel that pretty quickly. Yeah, I guess that's what I'd say.
All right, Mr. Grizzly,
Yes.
do we have the ability to play Derby Derby for the audience at the moment? No, we don't. Okay, because that was going to be a perfect intro. Okay, that was going to be a perfect intro to Derby Derby, but we'll play it on another episode.
Yeah, real limitations on the phone,
All right, no, that's all right. Holly, then before we go, could you tell our kids and cubs who would be interested in listening to the album and possibly downloading it in order to support the arts, where it is and how it is they could do that?
Yeah. So we're already out on the streaming services, and I have Spotify. I'm sort of a fan, but we should know that Spotify really does not remunerate. It's a pretty, it's a brilliant enterprise, but it's not helping musicians put money in the coffers. So maybe Apple Music. We should be out on Apple Music this week. That takes a little longer. Eventually Bandcamp, we're hoping to get up there, but right now it's the main streaming services. And if you, hopefully sometime in the next week, you'll be able to buy the physical CD off our website. We have only one CD posted right now for sale. But yeah, I would say that the streaming services, and go on and, type in Melos, MELOS, which is it's like an ancient Greek word for melody or song. So melos, if you think of melody, but then just stick an S in there before you get to the D. Melos Choir and Period Instruments. We need lots of listeners. I hope that we are getting listened to. And then on YouTube, there is a YouTube. I guess, Douglas, you'll be able to send that out at some point. We have a promotional about our
Yes. Absolutely. we'll be able to play that. I believe that we'll be able to play because it's a video link. All right. Thank you so very much, Holly, for joining us today.
So much, and I really enjoyed both the interview and hearing Mr. Grizzly. You know, prior to my airing, it was great. I didn't need my coffee. I found that quite invigorating and illuminating and appreciated it. You guys are doing an amazing thing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Right. We can play the YouTube link, though, can we?
I can't do any of that on my phone.
Okay.
Like,
all right.
it'll crash everything if I try. So.
Okay. All right. Then we'll play that also on another episode. All right. Then, Mr. Grizzly, I think we have a show.
I think so. Yeah, no, I think that went well. Despite some serious complicated beginning, sometimes that's just how life is. Life is full of complications, and we try and work around them as much as possible. And we were able to put something together for the kids today, so I'm happy about that. Even though it's not quite what we wanted, or quite up to our usual production standards, but we do can with the tech we have time. We're trying to do it.
Absolutely. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us because we loved making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, so please let your peeps and poops know about us. Because democracy is something that you do, make sure you get your XBB shots, that you send something to the Red Cross if you can, and of course that you write your MP specifically if they're conservative, to ask them what the heck they were thinking with regard to the national school food program. I just don't get it. I'm shocked by that. And what you opened the show with, Mr. Grizzly, I'm going to have to go check Open Parliament to see, but it seems that yesterday, when Pierre Poilievre was not in the House voting, I've heard from other people online that he was voting online. So it seems that he went to a Hanukkah event first, and then he went to a big fundraiser. And there are lots of comments online.
Oh, he voted
Pierre
online.
Poilievre was here.
But
yeah,
he voted online, but he did not show up in the House.
Yes. So we have a situation that basically he didn't stand with his own colleagues. They went in the House. They stayed up all night. They did all the voting. They had to do all the procedural stuff while he got to go to a Hanukkah event, and he got to go to a fundraiser, hobnob it up, have none of the boring process stuff, just pop in to vote when there was a time to vote. So he has a recorded vote that he can tell people he did, but no video of him standing up to vote no on all the things that they voted no to.
And his 20,000 amendments, they were tossed.
Yes. Yeah, they did they didn't do something procedurally correct, and they were all tossed in about 5 minutes with one vote. So the rest of the votes were for all other things that he obstructed. But the situation here is that, and I don't know if we said it on yesterday's show. I know I thought it, but I don't know if I said it. Like, watch him not show up, or I wonder if he'll ever show up. Yes, and sure enough, he let everybody else do the dirty work while he went out and he hobnobbed. And then there were questions like, well, why isn't Trudeau at a Hanukkah event? Because everybody else was in the House voting because he forced them to be there.
Yeah. Like the hypocrisy is beyond the, well,
I know.
The level of hypocrisy. It's astonishing. It's astonishing.
So it to me, like, I listened to it and it was sort of like, and we're going to go march onto the Capitol, and I'm going with you.
Didn't go.
We're going to stay in Parliament all night voting, and I'll be there. Oh, Hanukkah event. Oh, fundraiser.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm going to go hobnob. You guys do the thing, and I'll just press this button here when it's convenient to me, and then I could tell everybody I voted. There's something there's something not right there. There's absolutely something not right
There's
there.
a lot
And
of
then
things
when he
not
was,
right there.
yeah, and then when he went out and made that, because he hasn't had a presser since he did that thing in that synagogue, but he had his cabinet meeting and he had that filmed. And then at one point he put his fist up, and you know who? Just like Josh Hawley, the senator from
Mhm.
Tennessee or Nebraska, didn't he have his fist up at one
Yeah.
point on January 6th? And then we saw the video of
Running
him hauling ass.
away like the coward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Josh. So, he's got
Josh
Nixon's
hauling ass.
Josh hauling ass. So he's got Nixon's this,
I'm
and he's got
not a
Josh
crook.
Hawley's up, and he's got Trump's. I'm gonna be there with you. Whoops, I got something better to do.
Yeah.
They're showing you who they are. They're showing you who they are. Believe them.
Well, like I said, didn't bother to show up in the house. Vote. He did it remotely, but he'd rather go to a photo op and a fundraiser than actually show up in the house like he said he would to back up his words.
Yep.
All show, no go. All hat, no cattle.
Yep. Says a lot. So, kids, eyes wide open there. All right.
Let's call him Viagra poster boy because he's a limp dick.
All right. Because hey, we're all entitled to our opinions. Let's see. I know I'm missing something on the extra. I'm sorry, kids. I'm a little flustered today. So I'm just going to jump. Oh, yes. If you want to make sure that you don't miss an episode, you go to our pod page. That's podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And that way you do not have to miss an episode. When it's fresh off to the bandwidth, it will be there for you. Our YouTube, True North Eager Beaver. Please go there, like, share, subscribe, make like Kit Lane, and smash all those buttons. And if you'd like to support us in our endeavors, our tip jar or the emergency hydration fund can be found on our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And that way you can help us. We'll have yesterday also, kids, I went to a live event. And I will have some stuff for you from that on an upcoming show. So please, it was a very interesting talk about the disinformation economy. And it was hosted by the good folks at iPolitics. So I will have some stuff for you on that. And it seems that there's at least one media that did report on the National Food Program vote. For a Kit of ours, Kit Rory, pointed us to an article that appeared on CTV Winnipeg. And I'm guessing it appeared on CTV National because it was written by Rachel Aiello, who's like the main political person on the desk there. But it didn't come out till about noon yesterday. And as of about 7 o'clock last night, that was the only one that was still there. So they're taking their time getting to this, but if we keep the pressure up and we keep calling and asking, they're going to have to cover it. All right, kids?
Sooner or later.
So get those phones working. Yep. Call your media, call your MPs, raise some hell. All right? When you got a party that doesn't want to feed kids, you got some questions. It's time to lift the eyes up from the book and, oh yeah, my life is comfortable, but what's going on in my country here? We're doing what now? And to get involved a little bit. Okay, Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
I'm thinking about this today, and as I went on quite the rant yesterday, I'm still in those same emotions that the loyal opposition, the entire Conservative Party, voted against feeding children. And I'm trying to think of any other time in this nation's history when that may have occurred. And it's certainly not happened in my lifetime, when the opposition government voted against a program that will help children. Now, one of the explanations that Garnet Genuous tried to say is more bureaucrats will eat off of this than children. And I thought, yeah, very typical response. Well, a few people might get this that don't deserve it, so nobody gets anything, which is total horseshit. That is not how you build community. That is not how you build a country. If you are more concerned with you people taking advantage of the situation, that being millions of others, fuck off. Fuck off, Garnet Genuous, you child-hating homophobe. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Not exactly what I was expecting as words of wisdom, but all right. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your eager beaver saying it can be a tough world out there. Please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And we'll see you Monday.
Bye.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
All right, kids, have a beaverific weekend.